I never thought I'd feel this way at 27. Like I'm running on a treadmill that's speeding up, and no matter how fast I move, I'm stuck in the same spot, sometimes even slipping backward. The numbers on my bank app don't lie, rent is higher, groceries cost more, and the tiniest unexpected expense feels like a mountain I can't climb. It's not just money, it's hope shrinking in real time. I remember the day I moved out of my parents' house, full of excitement and plans. I thought, this is it, independence. But now, I'm not so sure. Every month is a balancing act, juggling bills, rent, student loans, and the random surprise expenses that feel less like surprises and more like traps. The cost of living has spiraled faster than any raise I've ever gotten, and it feels like the system is designed to keep me barely afloat. My mornings start with a quick check of my account, usually followed by a heavy sigh. That little balance number dictates what I can eat, how I commute, and whether I can even afford to see a friend or take a day off. It's exhausting. I make small sacrifices constantly, choosing tap water over coffee, skipping social events, hunting for discounts online, and trying to stretch every ingredient in my kitchen. There's a quiet sadness in declining invites, explaining I can't afford it right now, over and over. The weight of it all bleeds into my emotional space, too. I'm constantly anxious, like a low hum in the background that I can't turn off. Sometimes, I lie awake at night, thinking about what life could have been if I'd had a bit more breathing room. If maybe I hadn't had to choose between fixing my car or buying groceries. I try not to compare myself to others because I know everyone has their battles, but it's hard not to feel like I'm falling behind while the world moves ahead. Work is a mixed bag. I'm grateful to have a steady job, but the pay doesn't reflect how hard I'm hustling. The corporate jargon talks about growth and opportunities, but I don't see much of that in my paycheck. There's this constant pressure to perform better, take on more, and be grateful for what I get, even when it barely covers the essentials. Sometimes I wonder if this cycle will ever break or if I'm destined to keep living paycheck to paycheck, just hoping for a break that never comes. I've had to postpone so many dreams. A proper vacation, saving for a home, or even just building a small emergency fund, all of it feels like a distant fantasy. I put off seeing doctors for routine checkups, delayed replacing worn-out clothes, and paused plans for further education because the money isn't there. It stings because these aren't just luxuries, they're things that could make my life better, safer, more fulfilling. Instead, I settle for survival mode. Coping feels like a full-time job. I lean on a few close friends who understand the struggle, even if they don't fully live it. We talk openly about money, something I never expected to be comfortable with, but it helps. I've also started journaling, putting the chaos of my thoughts on paper, trying to untangle the mess of feelings tied to money. On tougher days, I remind myself this isn't forever, that change is possible, even if it's slow and incremental. Despite everything, I haven't lost all my hope. I still dream of a day when money isn't a constant source of stress, a day when I can invest in myself, explore new opportunities, and maybe help others who are in the same spot. I dream of stability, not luxury. Just enough to feel safe and comfortable without the constant fear of what's next. But right now, I'm here, navigating this relentless system that feels designed to trap me. Every day is a test of endurance, patience, and sometimes sheer will. I want to believe that the next paycheck will bring a little more ease, that the world will slow down enough for me to catch my breath. Until then, I keep moving forward, one careful step at a time, holding on to those small dreams that remind me there's still something worth fighting for. This story isn't unique, I know many others feel the same way. But for now, it's mine to carry. It's my truth, messy and unfiltered, living in a world where expenses grow faster than income, and hope feels both fragile and fierce all at once. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. I never thought I'd be here, writing out this story, trying to put into words the constant, grinding weight of financial pressure that follows me like a shadow. It's like living underwater, breathing through a straw. You know you need air, but it's never quite enough, and no matter how hard you push, you just can't break free. I'm in my late 20s, working a decent job, at least on paper. I clock in, put in the hours, meet my deadlines, keep the boss happy. But the paycheck I bring home feels like a cruel joke. Every month, expenses rise faster than my income, and I'm stuck running on a treadmill that just keeps speeding up. Rent, utilities, groceries, car insurance, phone bill, student loans, and then the little things, coffee, laundry detergent, a bus fare when the car breaks down. It all piles up, and there's no finish line. It's exhausting. Some days, it's the small victories that keep me going, skipping the morning latte, packing lunch instead of eating out, turning off the heat a little earlier. But those victories feel like losses too, like I'm shrinking my life bit by bit just to make ends meet. I look around at my friends who seem to be moving forward, buying homes, going on trips, starting families, and I wonder what's wrong with me. Why can't I catch up? Why does it feel like no matter what I do, I'm trapped in place? There's a gnawing anxiety that comes with money stress. It's there when I wake up, a dull ache in my chest, and it follows me through the day. Sometimes it's sharp, like when an unexpected bill hits or my car makes a worrying noise. I try to tell myself that I'm doing the best I can, but the truth is, I feel invisible, like the system is set up so that people like me just tread water forever. I remember the dreams I had growing up. I wanted to travel, see the world beyond the small town I was raised in. I imagined a cozy apartment with a little balcony where I could read books and invite friends over. I dreamed about going back to school for something I loved, maybe art or literature, something that fed my soul instead of just my bank account. But every time I think about those dreams, reality pushes in. Tuition is expensive, rent is sky high, and there's no safety net. I've had to postpone so many things, moving out, saving for retirement, even thinking about starting a family someday. The idea of financial security feels like a distant fantasy. Instead, I live day to day, hoping I won't get sick or that my car won't break down again. I cut corners wherever I can. Sometimes I skip meals or eat less just to save money, and the shame of that lingers longer than the hunger. What hurts the most is feeling like I'm invisible to the economy that runs my life. I'm part of the workforce, paying taxes, contributing to society, but the system isn't built for people like me to thrive. It's built to maintain a cycle where expenses outpace wages, where the rich get richer, and the rest of us keep pushing against an invisible wall. It's demoralizing, and some days I question whether my hard work even matters. To cope, I've started journaling, writing down my frustrations, my hopes, my small wins. It's a way to remind myself that I'm not alone, that these feelings are valid. I talk to close friends who understand, and sometimes that connection helps ease the loneliness. I try to find pockets of joy, in a good book, a walk in the park, a moment of laughter, but it's hard to fully enjoy those when your mind is tangled in financial stress. Still, I hold on to hope. Maybe one day the economy will change. Maybe wages will catch up to the cost of living. Maybe I'll find a way to break free from this cycle, go back to school, and build a life where money doesn't control every choice. I want to believe in a future where I'm not just surviving but thriving. Until then, I keep moving forward, even if it's just one small step at a time. Because giving up isn't an option, even when it feels like the system is designed to keep me down. I'm here, I'm trying, and that has to count for something. Some days, it feels like I'm walking on a treadmill that's speeding up just a little bit faster than I can keep pace. Not the kind where you sweat and push yourself to get fitter, but the one where you're running hard just to stay in place, financially, emotionally, mentally. I'm 27, working 2 part-time jobs, and still somehow drowning in expenses that seem to inflate overnight, while my paycheck barely stretches a few more inches than last month. It's this relentless grind, the invisible pressure that clings to my chest every morning when I wake up and the moment I close my eyes at night. I remember when I graduated college, the world felt wide open, full of promise and possibility. I had dreams like everyone else, a decent apartment, maybe a car, saving up for trips, a bit of fun here and there. But the reality started settling in fast. The entry-level job I landed paid just enough to cover rent, utilities, and groceries. No savings, no extras. I was naive. I thought as long as I worked hard, things would eventually improve. But the costs kept rising. Rent went up by a few $100s in a single year, groceries got pricier, my phone and internet bills increased, and suddenly that little emergency fund I had vanished with a car repair and a medical bill. Every month is a calculation, a tightrope walk. Do I buy the cheaper groceries and risk feeling tired and sluggish because I'm not eating well? Or do I spend a bit more and hope it doesn't blow the budget? Do I catch the bus or squeeze into a rideshare that gets me home faster after a late shift? Should I pay the credit card minimum and risk interest piling up, or try to scrape together a bit more and feel the pressure ease just a little? These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet, they're daily dilemmas that chip away at my peace of mind. I feel trapped in a system that doesn't seem to care about people like me, people who don't have a financial safety net. It's like a slow squeeze from all sides: housing, healthcare, transportation, food, utilities, and income that stubbornly refuses to catch up. Every paycheck feels like a drop in a vast ocean of expenses that keeps expanding. The hope that maybe, just maybe, if I work overtime or take on extra shifts, I'll get ahead, fades quickly when I realize that extra hours often mean more exhaustion and less time to take care of myself or see friends. The emotional toll is immense. There's this constant undercurrent of anxiety, that knot in my stomach, and the occasional pang of hopelessness when I stare at the bills stacked on the kitchen counter. I try to stay positive, but some nights I lie awake worrying about what happens if the car breaks down again or if I get sick and can't work for a week. Friends talk about investing or saving for a house, and I smile, but inside I feel a pang of envy mixed with sadness. Those dreams seem so far out of reach. I've had to postpone so many things. A long-planned trip with my best friend to visit her family overseas got cancelled twice now because I just can't justify the cost. I wanted to go back to school to improve my skills, but tuition feels like a mountain I can't climb. Even small things, like replacing my old laptop or getting new clothes, become weighty decisions. I find myself saying no more often than yes, not because I want to, but because I have no choice. Coping with all this is a daily challenge. I try to find little moments of joy and control where I can, cooking meals at home, even if it's just ramen with some veggies, listening to music, or going for a walk when the stress feels suffocating. I keep a journal, writing down my frustrations and hopes, which helps to get some of the noise out of my head. Sometimes, I talk to my closest friends or my younger sister, who always reminds me that I'm doing my best. But even then, I feel like I'm carrying a secret burden most people don't see or understand. What keeps me going is the hope that this is temporary, that if I can just get through this rough patch, things might get better. Maybe one day I'll find a stable job with a living wage, maybe I'll save enough to move into a place that doesn't feel like a financial death trap, maybe I'll be able to dream again without the shadow of debt looming over me. But that hope is fragile, and it gets tested every time an unexpected bill comes in or the rent rises again. I'm tired of the cycle, of working so hard and feeling like I'm barely treading water. I want to believe that I'm more than the sum of my financial struggles, that my worth isn't measured by the numbers in my bank account. But it's hard not to feel defined by this pressure when it infiltrates every part of my life. At the end of the day, I just want to breathe easy, to feel a little freedom, to look forward to the future without fear. I want to build a life where money isn't the constant worry, where I can invest in myself and my dreams, where I don't have to say no to the people and things I love. For now, I hold on to that hope, fragile and flickering, like a candle in a drafty room. Because if I lose that, what do I have left? I never thought I'd feel this way at 27. It's strange, looking back, I always imagined my 20s would be a time of exploration, freedom, maybe even a little reckless joy. Instead, it feels like I'm walking through quicksand, sinking deeper with every step. The harder I try to move forward, the more exhausted I get, and yet, the bills pile up like stones on my back, dragging me down. I work full-time, but it's a kind of job that barely pays enough to cover rent, utilities, groceries, and the occasional emergency. Every month, I watch my paycheck evaporate like mist, rent first, because losing my apartment would be catastrophic, then utilities and phone bill, non-negotiable because I can't go dark, groceries next, but those are a constant source of stress because if I want to eat well, it costs more than I can usually afford. And then there's transportation, public transit, a necessity, but even that adds up. Lately, it feels like the cost of everything is rising faster than I can earn. The news talks about inflation, the economy, the housing market, but it's hard to connect those abstract words with my reality until I open my bank app and see my balance dwindling. It's like the whole system is set up to keep me barely afloat. If I slip even a little, I'm in trouble. Some days, I wake up anxious, heart racing before I even get out of bed because I know I have to figure out how to stretch the last few dollars. Should I buy groceries today or wait until next week? If I pick up extra shifts, will I be too tired to even function? Should I skip my medication copay this month and risk the consequences? These aren't hypothetical worries, they're my real, daily dilemmas. And no matter what I choose, there's this gnawing feeling that I'm always losing, that the deck is stacked against me. I remember a few years ago, I had dreams, big ones. I wanted to travel, to maybe go back to school and finish my degree, to save enough to buy a place of my own someday. I wanted to have the luxury of making mistakes without the crushing weight of debt or the fear of eviction looming over me. But those dreams feel like distant stars now, beautiful but unreachable. When I think about my future, it's hard not to feel hopeless sometimes. I know I'm not alone, there are so many people my age stuck in the same cycle, but that doesn't make it easier. The system is designed to keep us working harder and harder, but not necessarily living better. I try to remind myself that things might get better, but some days, that feels like a lie I'm telling to survive. Coping has become an art form. I've learned to find small moments of peace, walking in the park, listening to music, calling a friend just to hear a familiar voice. I journal sometimes, pouring out my fears and frustrations because holding them in is too much. There are moments when I cry alone in my apartment, overwhelmed by the pressure, but I also have moments of fierce determination. I tell myself I have to keep going, not just for me, but for the people who believe in me. The hardest part is the isolation. Financial stress makes you withdraw because you don't want to burden others or admit you're struggling. It's embarrassing, like you failed in some fundamental way. But I'm learning that vulnerability is strength. Talking openly about this, like I am now, helps. Maybe it will help someone else feel less alone. I hope that one day, I'll look back on this time as a chapter, not the whole story. That the weight I carry now will loosen, and I'll find space to breathe, to dream again, and maybe even to live. For now, I take it day by day, holding on to the tiniest flickers of hope and trying to be kind to myself when the world feels unforgiving. I don't really know where to start, but here goes. I guess this is just me trying to make sense of everything, this pressure that never seems to lift, this weight I carry every single day. I'm 26, living in a tiny apartment that's more expensive than it should be, working a job that barely pays the bills. I'm stuck, and it feels like the world is moving faster than I can keep up. The thing about money, well, about not having enough of it, is that it's not just numbers on a screen or the balance in your bank account. It's anxiety in your chest when the rent's due, the tightness in your stomach when you have to decide between groceries or a bus ticket. It's feeling embarrassed when friends invite you out, but you have to say no because you can't afford to spend a few bucks on drinks or dinner. It's missing out on moments you know you'll regret but feel powerless to change. I remember when I first got my paycheck, years ago. It was a mix of excitement and pride, like I was finally stepping into adulthood. But very quickly, the thrill faded, replaced by a relentless cycle. The rent went up. Utilities crept higher. Groceries cost more every week. Even the little things, like getting a coffee or grabbing a meal out, started to feel like a luxury. Meanwhile, my paycheck didn't keep pace. In fact, it barely budged. Every month feels like a race against time and numbers. I track every expense obsessively, sometimes to the point where it feels like an unhealthy obsession. I've cut back on so many things: no more streaming subscriptions, no new clothes unless absolutely necessary, no weekend getaways, no spontaneous plans. My phone plan is the cheapest I could find, and I'm constantly comparing prices on everything. Still, somehow, it never feels like enough. I'm trapped in a system where the cost of living rises relentlessly, but wages lag behind. Inflation has become a cruel joke. The more I try to stretch my paycheck, the thinner it becomes. Bills pile up faster than I can pay them. Sometimes I worry about what would happen if there was an unexpected expense, a medical emergency, a broken appliance. I don't have a safety net, and the thought terrifies me. Emotionally, it's exhausting. I wake up some days already tired, weighed down by the stress of what's ahead. Sleep is restless because my mind won't stop running through calculations and what-ifs. It's lonely too. People don't often talk about financial strain openly. There's a stigma, a shame around it. I feel like I have to hide it, pretend I'm doing okay. But inside, I'm anxious, frustrated, sometimes hopeless. I used to dream about so much more. When I was younger, I imagined traveling, maybe moving to a new city, or even going back to school to pursue something I love. I wanted to save for a home, build a life that felt secure and full of possibilities. But those dreams have been shelved, postponed indefinitely. Every extra dollar goes to survival, not to growth or joy. Some nights, I just lie awake, wondering if things will ever get better. Will there come a day when I'm not constantly scrambling? When I can breathe without this financial pressure suffocating me? I try to hold on to hope, but it's hard when the system feels rigged, when the deck seems stacked against people like me who work hard but never get ahead. Coping with all this isn't easy. I've learned to find small pockets of relief. Sometimes it's a walk outside, feeling the sun on my face and pretending, if only for a moment, that life isn't so hard. Sometimes it's calling a friend and just talking, even if it's about nothing important. Other times, it's binge-watching shows or reading to escape the reality I face every day. These little moments help, but they're not a fix. I've also started to think about what I can control. I'm trying to build new skills, even if it's slow, hoping that someday it will lead to better opportunities. I've applied for scholarships and online courses, trying to find a path forward that doesn't rely solely on a paycheck that never grows. It's daunting and frustrating, but I keep trying because giving up isn't an option. What keeps me going is the belief that life can be better than this. That my worth isn't defined by how much money I make or how much I'm struggling. That someday, I'll have the freedom to make choices that aren't dictated by fear or scarcity. I don't know when that day will come, but I hold on to the possibility. This story isn't unique. I know there are millions like me feeling this pressure every day, young adults caught in a relentless cycle of rising expenses and stagnant incomes. It's a quiet crisis that doesn't get enough attention. But it's real, and it's painful. So, here I am, sharing this because maybe it helps to say it out loud. To remind myself and others that we're not alone in feeling trapped, that it's okay to be vulnerable, and that even in the hardest moments, hope can still find a way in. That's my truth, messy, uncertain, and deeply human. I wake up most mornings with this heavy weight sitting on my chest, like a silent alarm reminding me that money isn't just something I need to make ends meet, it's the thing that shapes every tiny detail of my life. I'm 27, working full-time, trying to keep my head above water, but it feels like I'm swimming against a tide that only keeps getting stronger. The cost of living keeps climbing: rent, groceries, bills, and my paycheck stays stubbornly the same. Sometimes, I think I could be working 24/7 and still never catch up. I remember when I first moved out on my own, filled with a mix of excitement and nerves. Back then, I believed if I just worked hard and stayed disciplined, everything would fall into place. But now, after 4 years of juggling 2 jobs and watching every cent, I see the truth in the bitter way it's become: the system isn't built for people like me. It's like I'm stuck on a treadmill that speeds up with every step I take. Every day is a balancing act. Last week, I had to decide between buying groceries or paying my phone bill. I chose groceries. Losing phone service would mean losing connection to job opportunities and essential communication, but those groceries, they're the fuel I need to keep going. The thought of going hungry terrifies me more than the idea of being unreachable. Still, every choice feels like a loss. When rent is due, I have to swallow the fear and move money around like a puzzle, borrowing here, postponing there. I've become a master at hiding stress from friends and family, but it's always there beneath the surface, simmering. The financial pressure creeps into my emotional well-being in ways I didn't expect. I find myself withdrawing more, avoiding social events because going out means spending money I don't have. It's lonely, but the anxiety over debt and bills feels heavier than the loneliness. Some nights, I lie awake thinking about what it means to keep sacrificing pieces of myself, the hobbies I loved, the spontaneous adventures I dreamed of, just to survive. I used to paint and write. Now, those things feel like luxuries I can't afford, not in time, energy, or money. My dreams feel postponed indefinitely, like they're stuck behind a locked door I don't have the key for. The endless cycle of expenses growing faster than income feels like a trap with no exit. Inflation hits everything, the price of bread, gas, electricity. Meanwhile, my salary barely inches upward, often swallowed by increased taxes or mandatory deductions. I've tried budgeting, cutting back, picking up side gigs, and yet the gap only widens. It's exhausting, this constant fight against numbers that feel bigger than me. Sometimes I wonder if I'm failing because I'm not trying hard enough or if it's the system that's failing me. At times, it feels like I'm invisible, like the economy moves around me, but I don't really exist in it except as a statistic of struggle. I see news stories about growth, stock markets soaring, and new businesses thriving, but none of it filters down to my reality. The middle class I thought I was part of feels like a myth. I live paycheck to paycheck, stressed about what next month will bring. I've learned to live with uncertainty, but it's a bitter companion. Still, I hold on to hope. I imagine a future where money doesn't dictate every choice, where I can breathe without constant calculation. I dream of traveling, maybe going back to school, or starting a small business that's mine. Those dreams keep me going on days when the weight feels unbearable. I remind myself that my value isn't tied to my bank account, even though the world often acts like it is. I try to find small pockets of joy, moments where I can laugh, connect, or create without cost. Sometimes it's a walk in the park, a phone call with a friend, or a quiet evening with a book borrowed from the library. These things are lifelines, reminders that there is more to life than just surviving. Writing this, I realize I'm not alone in this struggle. There are so many of us caught in this squeeze, trying to make a life under impossible pressure. I want to say that it's okay to feel overwhelmed, that it's okay to be vulnerable about these struggles. And maybe, if enough of us speak openly, the system will start to change. For now, I keep moving forward, one day at a time, trying to hold on to the pieces of hope that remind me why I keep fighting. Because despite the financial pressure, despite the constant feeling of being trapped, I still believe there's something better waiting on the other side. I just have to get there. It's hard to even know where to begin when every day feels like the same exhausting cycle, but here I am, trying to put into words what it means to live under this relentless financial pressure. I'm 27, and somehow, instead of feeling like I'm starting out or building a life, I feel like I'm stuck in quicksand, one that pulls harder the more I struggle. Maybe that's the thing about this economic squeeze, it's invisible to everyone else until you're already deep in it, gasping for breath, wondering how you got here. I grew up hearing the usual advice: work hard, save a little, be smart with money, and you'll get ahead. Sounds simple, right? But in the world I live in, it feels like the rules have changed, or maybe they never really applied to people like me. The cost of rent, groceries, transportation, and just life keeps climbing. Faster than any paycheck I can earn. It's like trying to fill a bathtub with a leaky bucket. You patch one hole, and two more appear. I work 2 part-time jobs. One at a coffee shop, the other in retail. Neither pays enough to cover my rent and bills comfortably, but together, they keep me afloat. Barely. There's always some unexpected expense that throws everything off: a medical bill, a car repair, or sometimes just the rising price of milk that breaks the fragile balance. I don't remember the last time I bought something just for fun. Even a small indulgence feels like a reckless luxury. Some days, I wake up with a pit in my stomach, the weight of all the bills pressing down on me before I'm even fully awake. The first thing I do is check my bank account on my phone. It's a ritual, really, one that rarely brings relief. That number, always lower than I want it to be, defines my mood for the rest of the day. I have to constantly calculate and recalibrate. What can I afford today? Should I skip lunch to save money? Can I afford the bus fare, or should I walk an extra hour instead? This pressure follows me everywhere. At work, I'm physically tired but mentally on edge, distracted by the money I don't have and the future I can't see clearly. I avoid calling my parents about my situation because I don't want to worry them. They work hard too, and I don't want to be a burden. I hide the full extent of my stress from friends, even though I feel isolated. There's a shame that comes with financial struggle, like I'm failing somehow. But really, I'm just caught in a system that favors those already ahead, and I'm running on empty. Every month, I'm forced to make impossible choices. Do I pay the electric bill or put something in my fridge? Can I afford a doctor if I get sick, or do I just hope it passes? Sometimes, I skip meals, not because I want to, but because I have to. The hunger is a dull ache, but it's also a reminder that survival isn't guaranteed, even in a country where so much is promised. It's humbling and terrifying. I think about the dreams I had before this all felt like a trap. I wanted to travel, to see the world outside the city that's become a cage. I wanted to go back to school, to finish a degree that might one day help me break free. I wanted to buy a home, start a family, build a life that felt stable. But those dreams feel distant, like stars just out of reach. I've had to put them on hold, not just temporarily, but indefinitely, because right now, surviving feels like the only goal. At night, when the city quiets down and I lie in bed, the anxiety creeps in. It whispers the worst-case scenarios, the fear that this is all there will ever be. I'm haunted by questions I don't have answers to. How long can I keep this up? What if I get sick? What if rent goes up again? Sometimes, I feel like I'm drowning in a sea of bills and deadlines, with no lifeline in sight. But somehow, I keep going. I cling to small acts of hope, a friend's kind words, a day when everything seems a little less heavy, a future where maybe, just maybe, things will get better. I'm learning to find strength in vulnerability, to admit that I'm struggling and that's okay. It's not weakness, it's real. I know the system is broken in ways that make people like me pay the highest price. And I don't want pity, I want change. I want a world where hard work can actually lead to a better life, where no one has to choose between paying the bills and eating. But until then, I'll keep navigating this maze, one step at a time, holding on to the hope that someday, I'll find a way out. Because giving up is not an option, even when the weight feels unbearable. That's my story, raw, unfiltered, and real. A young adult trying to survive in an economy that doesn't seem to want me to succeed, but still dreaming quietly, fiercely, against all odds. It's been a long time since I felt truly free. Not just in a vague, philosophical way, but in the practical, everyday sense, free to make choices without that crushing weight of how am I going to pay for this, sitting on my chest. I'm in my late 20s now, and every day feels like I'm just inching forward in a race where the finish line keeps moving further away. I grew up in a family that never really had much extra money, so I learned early on to be careful with every dollar. But back then, I thought that once I had a steady job and could support myself, things would start to ease up. I thought, naively, that paying rent, buying groceries, and saving a little wouldn't feel like climbing a mountain every month. The reality has been the opposite. The economic environment today is brutal. Rent prices in my city have skyrocketed, and every time I get a small raise, it barely covers the increase in bills or food costs. It's like the expenses are sprinting, and my paycheck is stuck jogging behind. I remember the first time I realized this wasn't just a temporary glitch, it was a system. A system designed so that no matter how hard I work, I can't quite get ahead. I look at my bank account, and it's almost a punchline to me now, less than a few $100s, barely enough to cover emergencies, let alone anything beyond the basics. Credit card debt is creeping up because sometimes I have no choice but to buy essentials on credit and hope to pay it off next month. But next month comes, and the debt is still there, waiting, growing with interest. It feels like a trap. My days are a constant calculation. Do I spend on the bus or walk and save the fare? Can I buy the slightly cheaper groceries that will probably last me less but won't break the bank this week? Do I say no to going out with friends again because I need to save for the car repairs or doctor's visit? The mental energy it takes to constantly juggle these decisions wears me down more than I can put into words. I'm exhausted, not physically, but emotionally. The stress of never feeling secure seeps into everything. Sleep becomes restless when I'm lying awake wondering if the rent will clear or if a bill will surprise me this month. I catch myself holding back tears because it feels like admitting defeat, but inside, the frustration and fear are real. Sometimes, I get angry at the system, at the economy, at the rising costs that seem disconnected from the reality of people like me trying to live on a modest income. The news talks about economic growth and market gains, but those numbers don't translate into my world. They're headlines in a language that doesn't speak to the struggle of keeping food on the table and avoiding eviction notices. I've had to postpone so many dreams. Traveling, which I used to think was just a year or two away, now feels like a luxury from a lifetime ago. Further education or training to get better job prospects? It's a cruel joke when tuition fees have climbed and I'm barely scraping together the basics. Even small things, like buying new clothes for a job interview or treating myself to a night out, feel like sacrifices in a game where every bit of joy must be rationed. I sometimes wonder if I'm the only one feeling this way, but I know I'm not. The silence around this kind of financial pressure is deafening. People post their highlight reels online, vacations, dinners, new gadgets, and it's hard not to compare. But I remind myself that comparison is poison, especially when it comes to money and happiness. My coping mechanisms are imperfect but necessary. I find solace in small routines, morning walks, music, journaling my frustrations. Sometimes I vent to close friends who understand or read stories of others in the same boat. There's a strange comfort in shared hardship. It's not enough to fix the problem, but it's a reminder that I'm not invisible. Most days, I hold on to hope. Hope that maybe, somehow, I'll find a way out. That the job I have now might lead to something better, or I'll stumble upon an opportunity one didn't expect. That the economy might shift, or new policies might ease the burden on people like me. But hope feels fragile these days, a flickering candle in a drafty room. I want to believe in a future where I can breathe easier, where I can dream without the weight of money dragging me down. I want to believe that someday I'll look back and see this time as a struggle I overcame, not the definition of my life. But right now, that future feels distant and uncertain. For now, I live day by day, paycheck by paycheck, decision by decision. I try to be kind to myself when the anxiety flares up, and remind myself that survival is a victory in itself. I'm trapped, yes, but not broken. The system is harsh, but I'm still here, still hoping for a break in the clouds. That's all I have right now, hope. And maybe, someday, that will be enough to carry me forward. Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. I never thought I'd end up here, writing out my story like this, hoping someone might hear me, understand what it's like to feel caught in a financial squeeze that never seems to loosen. I'm 27 now, and for as long as I can remember, money has been this invisible weight tied to my ankles, dragging me down no matter how fast I run. It's exhausting, frustrating, and honestly, sometimes I just want to scream into the void and have the world listen. It started small, just that lingering sense that my paycheck never really stretched far enough. I remember my first real job out of college, full of hope and pride. I was determined, ready to take on the world. But then came rent, groceries, student loans, phone bills, transport, and suddenly, my carefully budgeted plans were crumbling. The numbers never added up the way I hoped they would. Every month, the cost of living crept up like a slow-moving tide, while my income felt stuck in place. It was like watching a balloon slowly fill with water, inching toward bursting, except it was my bank account, and it was never enough. I live in a city where rent feels like a second mortgage. Even a tiny, cramped apartment demands nearly half of my monthly income. I try to convince myself it's just temporary, a stepping stone, but each year it feels harder to save for anything beyond the bare essentials. Utilities keep going up, groceries have gotten pricier, especially fresh food, and even the subway fare jumped again. Meanwhile, my salary has barely moved. There's this constant tension, a gnawing feeling that no matter how hard I work or how careful I am, the system is rigged to keep me on the edge. Some days, I find myself standing in the grocery aisle, staring at the price tag on something as basic as milk or eggs, calculating silently if I can afford to buy more than the absolute minimum. It's humiliating. I grew up in a family that never had much, but at least there was food on the table. Now, I worry about the simple act of eating properly without breaking my budget. Choosing between healthy options and cheaper, processed foods isn't just about preference, it's about survival. I've had to learn to be incredibly resourceful, cutting coupons, buying in bulk, cooking from scratch, but it's a constant battle against rising prices. Emotional exhaustion is probably the hardest part. It's not just the numbers, it's the feeling of being trapped, like I'm running on a treadmill that speeds up every time I think I'm catching up. There are nights when I lie awake, heart pounding, thinking about the pile of bills on the kitchen counter, wondering how I'm going to pay for unexpected expenses, like a medical bill or a broken phone. That sinking feeling of helplessness is a heavy shadow that follows me everywhere. And yet, I try to keep going. I cope by finding small pockets of joy where I can. Sometimes it's a walk in the park, reading a good book from the library, or cooking a meal with friends. Those moments remind me that life isn't only about money, even if it often feels like it's the only thing that matters. I've also tried to open up to close friends about the pressure, though it's not easy admitting that I'm struggling. There's so much shame tied to financial hardship, like somehow it's a personal failure rather than a system-wide issue. The pandemic only made things worse. I lost a gig that helped me make ends meet, and even when I found another, the pay was lower, and the hours were unpredictable. I watched my savings dwindle as the cost of living kept climbing. My mental health took a hit, anxiety and depression became unwelcome companions. Therapy helps, but it's another expense to juggle. I learned to prioritize my mental well-being, but that sometimes means skipping other necessities just to afford a session or two. I have dreams, big ones, that now feel like distant stars. I wanted to travel, to move to a place where I could breathe more freely, to buy my own home someday. I wanted to start a family without the constant fear of financial collapse looming over every decision. I wanted to invest in myself, go back to school, explore new career paths. But those dreams have had to be shelved indefinitely. The truth is, just making it through each month often feels like victory enough. Sometimes, I wonder if I'm just not trying hard enough, if there's a secret formula to break free from this cycle. But deep down, I know it's bigger than me. It's the way wages have stagnated while costs soar, the way the economy favors those already ahead, and the way people like me get caught in the middle, invisible and unheard. Still, I hold on to hope. I hold on to the belief that change is possible, if not tomorrow, then someday. That maybe one day, the system will bend enough to give people like me a fair shot. That maybe I'll find a community of support, a job that pays living wages, and a life where financial pressure isn't a constant shadow. Until then, I keep pushing forward, learning to live with uncertainty and finding strength in the small victories. This is my story, not just about money, but about resilience and the quiet fight to keep dreaming in a world that often makes it hard to do so. If you're reading this and feeling the same way, know you're not alone. We're caught in this system together, and sometimes just sharing that truth can make the burden a little lighter. Thank you for listening. I never imagined that money would feel like a cage. But here I am, in my late 20s, stuck in this constant loop where everything I earn somehow disappears before I even catch a breath. It's like the world is spinning faster than I can keep up with, and the harder I try to run, the more exhausted I get. When I graduated college, I had big dreams. I pictured myself living in a small apartment downtown, working a job I liked, saving up to travel, maybe even buying a car within a few years. Simple things, really. But reality hit hard and fast. The economy isn't kind right now, and it feels like prices are inflating overnight. Rent, groceries, utilities, everything just climbs higher while my paycheck stays stubbornly the same. My job offers the bare minimum, no raises that keep pace with inflation, no bonuses, just a steady paycheck that barely covers the essentials. Every morning, I wake up and the first thought is, how am I going to make this work today? It's a mental weight I carry everywhere. I skip my usual coffee from the cafe down the street because those $4 add up over a month. I pack my lunch, not because I'm health conscious, but because eating out is a luxury I can't afford. I check my bank app obsessively, calculating what I can spend without dipping into my meager savings. And that's if I have any left after the bills. The bills are the cruelest part. Rent takes nearly half my income. Then utilities, electricity, water, internet, are another chunk. Food costs more than they should, and sometimes I have to choose between buying fresh produce or the cheaper canned stuff. Transportation costs, even if I walk or bike most places, sneak in with occasional rides or maintenance for my old bike. Then there's the phone bill, the health insurance, and on and on. Each expense alone isn't devastating, but they pile up like an avalanche. And emergencies? They're catastrophic. When my laptop died last year, it was a nightmare. I needed it for work and applications, but fixing it or replacing it wasn't an option I could just pull out of my pocket. I had to borrow money from family and start paying it back in tiny installments, a debt I still feel guilty about. Emotionally, it's draining. I feel trapped in a system that doesn't seem built for people like me, young, working hard, but barely scraping by. There's a constant background anxiety, a quiet panic that never fully goes away. I lie awake at night wondering if I'm making the right choices, if I'm failing myself, my family, or just luck. Social media doesn't help either. Everyone seems to be moving forward, buying homes, traveling, celebrating milestones, while I'm here counting pennies and postponing my life. I've had to put dreams on hold. Buying a car, moving into a nicer place, even taking a vacation feels impossible. I used to imagine what it'd be like to just breathe freely, without financial stress shadowing every thought. To save for the future instead of living paycheck to paycheck. To invest in myself, maybe go back to school or start a side hustle. But those dreams feel so far away now. They're fragile, like glass I'm afraid to touch because I might shatter them. Coping isn't easy, but I try. I lean on friends, even though sometimes I feel embarrassed about my situation. I talk to my partner, who understands and shares the burden. I try to find small joys, reading, walking in the park, cooking meals from scratch. I remind myself that this isn't forever, even if it feels endless. Sometimes, I journal to release the pressure or just cry when the weight feels too much. I'm learning to be kinder to myself, even if the world isn't. I'm trying to find resilience in vulnerability, strength in admitting that I'm struggling. Because pretending everything is fine doesn't help. The truth is, this economic pressure shapes every part of my life, from what I eat to who I spend time with, from my self-esteem to my outlook on the future. But despite it all, I hold on to hope. Maybe someday the scales will tip, maybe the economy will shift, maybe I'll find a better job or a new path. Maybe I'll finally breathe that sigh of relief I've been holding in for years. Until then, I'll keep moving forward, even if it's just one small step at a time. Because giving up isn't an option, not for the dreams I still have and the life I want to build. This is my truth, a young adult caught in a system that feels designed to wear me down, but still fighting to rise above it. It's messy, it's painful, but it's real. And maybe, by sharing it, I can remind myself and others that we're not alone in this struggle. that the pressure we feel isn't a personal failure, but a reflection of something bigger. And that hope, fragile as it is, can still grow. I never thought I'd feel this way, so caught in a loop, like I'm running in place while the world moves forward, faster and faster. It's weird to admit, but some days, I wake up and just feel the weight of everything pressing down on me before my feet even hit the floor. It's the kind of pressure that comes not from a single moment or mistake, but from a slow, steady squeeze that tightens day after day, month after month. I'm 26, living in a city that's supposed to be full of opportunities. But the opportunities feel like a mirage. Jobs are there, but the pay barely covers rent, let alone any sort of breathing room. I work full-time in retail, a job I took after college because it was stable. But stability here just means the same paycheck that can't keep up with the rent hikes, the skyrocketing grocery bills, and the rising cost of every little necessity. It's like my income is stuck on a treadmill moving at a slow pace, but my expenses are sprinting ahead without me. Every day, I juggle bills and budgets with a sort of mechanical precision I never wanted to master. I've become an expert at reading receipts, hunting for sales, and skipping things I used to think were normal, like eating out, or buying new clothes, or even going to the movies with friends. I remember when those things felt like the little joys of life, like rewards for working hard. Now, they're luxuries I can't afford. The economic environment isn't just numbers on a spreadsheet, it's an invisible cage that closes in tighter with every rent increase or surprise expense. Inflation isn't just some abstract news headline, it's the reason I sometimes stare at my bank app and feel like crying because the available balance never looks like enough. Utilities go up, and I find myself in a constant struggle deciding which bills get paid first, and which I'll have to call and negotiate to delay. Sometimes, I skip meals just so I can cover a late utility bill. That's how desperate it feels. I don't want to sound dramatic, but it's exhausting. The exhaustion isn't just physical, it's emotional and mental. Constantly worrying about money wears on you. It steals your energy and your optimism. I catch myself shrinking back when friends talk about vacations or buying a house someday. Those dreams feel like distant galaxies I'll never reach because the gravity of my current reality is too strong. I used to dream about having a home of my own. I imagined painting the walls any color I wanted, filling shelves with books, maybe adopting a dog. Now, I'm just grateful if I can keep my apartment for another year. The rent keeps going up, and I can't move somewhere cheaper without losing a lot of things I need, like my job location and the community I've built. It's a trap, the kind that's invisible until you're deep inside it. I'm trying to cope the best I can. Some nights, I sit in silence and breathe deeply, trying to quiet the panic that bubbles up when I think about next month's rent or the car's maintenance costs. I've started journaling, writing down every expense, every worry, and even the tiniest victories, like getting a small refund or finding a discount code. It's a small way to feel like I'm in control, even if it's just a little. Sometimes, I call my parents, and they try to help. But I hate feeling like a burden. They worked so hard to give me a chance at a better life, and I'm stuck here struggling. It feels like I'm failing somehow. And yet, I keep trying. I take on extra shifts, pick up freelance gigs, anything to make the numbers line up. But it's a constant battle against a system that seems rigged to keep people like me just barely afloat. I know I'm not alone in this. So many of my friends are in the same boat, juggling multiple jobs, delaying major life steps like buying a car or starting a family because the money just isn't there. We talk about it in hushed tones, because the stigma of struggling financially is real. It's not something you want to broadcast, even though it's the reality for a huge chunk of our generation. Despite everything, I haven't given up on hope entirely. Sometimes, when the nights are quiet and the worries aren't screaming, I let myself imagine a future where things aren't so tight. Where my work is meaningful and pays enough to cover all the basics, with something left over to save, to dream, to build. Maybe one day I'll go back to school for something I love or start a small business. But for now, those dreams feel like bookmarks on a page I haven't yet reached. The hardest part is feeling trapped, not by my own choices, but by the invisible economic forces that dictate how much I can live, how much I can plan, how much I can hope. Every pay raise feels like a drop of water in a bucket that's leaking somewhere else. Every expense is a reminder that I'm running just to stay in the same spot. But I keep going. Because what else is there? Giving up means surrendering those quiet, stubborn hopes that keep me waking up every day, even when the weight feels unbearable. I remind myself that this chapter doesn't define me, that better days can come even if they feel impossibly far away. And some small part of me clings to the belief that maybe, just maybe, the system can change, and I can too. For now, I live one day at a time, navigating this maze of bills, jobs, and dreams postponed, holding on to the fragile hope that someday, I'll look back at this time and see it as a chapter of survival, strength, and resilience, not defeat. And that hope? That's what keeps me moving forward. I wake up every morning to the same nagging feeling, like I'm running a race that keeps getting longer, while my legs get heavier and heavier. The sky outside my window is pale, the light filtering in hardly bright enough to shake off the weight pressing on my chest before the day even begins. It's not just the tiredness of early mornings or the dull ache of sitting in traffic. It's something deeper, a persistent unease that comes from knowing that no matter how hard I work, the gap between what I make and what I owe just keeps widening. I'm 27, working a full-time job that, on paper, seems decent. I'm lucky to have it, they say. But my paycheck disappears before I can blink. Rent, utilities, groceries, insurance, phone bills, transportation, the occasional emergency, everything is a line item on a list that stretches forever. Every month I try to squeeze my expenses tighter, cutting back here, avoiding the tempting sale there, packing my lunch to skip eating out. But the truth is, it's like pouring water into a bucket with a hole in the bottom. No matter what I do, the bucket never fills. The economic environment feels like this invisible force dragging me under. Prices climb faster than my salary does, and inflation is a word I hear so often it's almost meaningless, but its effects are devastatingly real. Gas prices shoot up, making my commute more expensive, groceries cost more, turning simple meals into luxury experiments, utilities surge in the colder months, forcing me to choose between turning up the heat or saving on my electric bill. Every time I open a bill or check my bank account, I'm reminded that the system is rigged in a way that favors someone else, somewhere far away from me, comfortably out of reach. The worst part is the feeling of being trapped. I know I'm not alone, but knowing that doesn't ease the loneliness. It's a cage made of numbers and deadlines, of past decisions I didn't understand at the time and choices I didn't want to make but had no alternative. Sometimes, I sit on my couch late at night, scrolling through social media or watching shows where characters have financial freedom or talk about investing or buying homes or traveling. I want to scream at the screen, that's not my world. I can't even think about those things. Dreams I once had, owning a small apartment, traveling to a new country, even just saving enough to feel safe, feel like distant mirages now. I postponed so many things that should have been simple milestones, getting a better laptop for work, seeing a therapist regularly, joining a gym, or even splurging on a decent pair of shoes. Every little dream I tuck away is replaced by the dull necessity of surviving today. Sometimes I wonder if I'm losing parts of myself in the process, the parts that hope, that imagine, that dare to believe life could be different. Emotional well-being? It's fragile, like walking on cracked ice. Some days, I feel exhausted and defeated, as if I'm fighting a current I'll never outswim. Anxiety is a constant shadow, whispering worries about the next bill, the next unexpected expense, the ever-looming possibility of losing the job or falling behind. There are nights when the weight presses so hard I can't sleep, heart racing, thoughts spiraling. I catch myself holding my breath, trying to will the panic away, but it's always there, just beneath the surface. Still, I keep going. Coping becomes an art of small victories and stubborn resilience. I find comfort in routines, making a cup of tea, listening to music, journaling my thoughts, even if it's just a reminder that I'm still here, still fighting. I talk to friends, though I often hesitate to share how hard things really are. There's a shame in admitting vulnerability, especially when so many around me seem to be making it. But sometimes, opening up brings relief, a little reminder that I'm not alone in this. I also find small ways to reclaim control. I budget meticulously, tracking every cent. I learn new skills on free online platforms, hoping to one day move into a better paying job. I search for side gigs, even if they barely add to my income, just to feel like I'm pushing back against the tide. And I allow myself moments of gratitude, a good conversation, a walk in the park, a simple meal enjoyed without guilt. Hope is fragile, but it's there. I hold on to the idea that someday, the scales might tip. That maybe, just maybe, I'll break out of this endless cycle where expenses grow faster than my paycheck. That I'll have the space to breathe, to dream, to live fully again without the constant dread of numbers and deadlines. I dream of stability, of a steady income that doesn't vanish by the end of the month, of a home that feels mine, of being able to care for my mental health without hesitation. But I also know the path is uncertain. The system is vast, and it doesn't seem designed for people like me. Still, I move forward, day by day, step by step. Because despite it all, I am here, and that counts for something. My story is one of quiet struggle, resilience, and the stubborn flicker of hope that refuses to die. Maybe one day, when I look back, I'll see these years not just as a time of hardship, but as the foundation for a future I fought hard to build. Until then, I keep waking up to that pale morning light and keep trying to run the race, even if it feels endless and the weight feels unbearable. Because giving up isn't an option, not yet. Sometimes I wonder how I ended up here, stuck in this endless loop where every day feels like walking through quicksand. I'm in my late 20s now, officially a young adult, but honestly, some days I feel more like a kid pretending to have it all together. The truth is, I'm drowning under this relentless financial pressure, and it's exhausting. It's not just the numbers in my bank account, it's the weight that clings to every choice I make, every plan I try to sketch out for myself. I grew up thinking that if I worked hard, saved a little, and kept my head down, I'd eventually carve out a decent life for myself. But that idea feels like a cruel joke these days. The cost of everything, rent, groceries, utilities, transportation, it all keeps climbing faster than I can earn. Each paycheck is already sliced and diced by bills before I even get a chance to breathe. And no matter how many extra hours I put in, it feels like I'm just treading water, never really moving forward. I remember when I first moved into my own apartment. It was tiny, a little cramped, and not in the best neighborhood, but it was mine. I was so proud. I imagined filling it with plants, art, maybe even a pet someday. But the reality hit fast. The rent was already a big chunk of my income, and then utilities started piling up, and suddenly, the dream felt like a burden. I had to start cutting corners. No more eating out, no spontaneous plans with friends, no new clothes unless absolutely necessary. It's incredible how fast the small joys get chipped away when you have to prioritize survival. The worst part is the feeling of being trapped. I look at my monthly budget like a game where the rules keep changing, but I never get an advantage. A sudden price hike at the grocery store means stretching every meal thinner, cutting out little things like coffee or snacks. When the car needs repairs or something unexpected happens, it's like a punch to the gut. Do I pay for this, or cover rent this month? And the system around me feels indifferent, designed in a way that people like me are always just one emergency away from disaster. It's a constant anxiety, a knot in my stomach that never really loosens. I try to cope the best I can. I've learned to find tiny moments of peace, a walk in the park, watching a movie at home, catching up with friends online. I'm careful about my spending, tracking every penny with apps, setting reminders, making lists. Sometimes I do odd jobs, freelance gigs, anything to squeeze a little extra income. But even then, it's like plugging holes in a sinking ship. The water just keeps coming in. The emotional toll is hard to describe. Some days, I'm overwhelmed with frustration and shame, like I'm failing at life because I can't get ahead. Other times, I feel numb, just going through the motions, pretending I'm okay when inside I'm screaming. It's lonely, too. I don't talk about money struggles with many people because I'm afraid of judgment or pity. I want to be seen as competent, not someone barely scraping by. But the truth is, this financial pressure has affected my relationships, my self-esteem, and my dreams. Speaking of dreams, there are so many I've had to put on hold. I used to want to travel, not extravagant trips, just simple adventures to places I've never been, to see new cultures, meet new people, and find inspiration. I dreamed of going back to school to study something I'm passionate about, maybe get a degree that could open new doors. And I always imagined having a stable, cozy home filled with warmth and laughter. But those dreams feel like distant stars, flickering far away, unreachable because every dollar is spoken for. Sometimes I catch myself daydreaming about quitting everything, just starting fresh somewhere cheaper, somewhere less overwhelming. But then reality creeps back in, the fear of instability, the weight of responsibilities, the guilt of leaving behind what little security I've built. So I stay, trapped in this cycle, hoping for a break, a change, a miracle. Despite everything, I haven't given up completely. I hold on to hope, fragile but persistent. I remind myself that this moment, however dark, doesn't define my entire life. I'm trying to be kind to myself, to acknowledge that surviving this pressure is an achievement in itself. Some days, that's enough. I'm learning to celebrate small victories, paying a bill on time, saving a few dollars, making it through another week without breaking down. I want to believe that someday the scales will tip, that the system will shift, or maybe I'll find a way out. Until then, I keep going, one day at a time, carrying this weight but refusing to let it crush me completely. Because deep down, beyond the exhaustion and the worry, there's still a spark, a hope for a life where financial pressure doesn't dictate my every move, where I can breathe freely, dream openly, and live fully. I never thought I'd be this tired of just trying to keep my head above water. It's like I'm swimming in an ocean that keeps rising, wave after wave, but I'm stuck with an old wooden raft that's barely holding together. Every day feels like a balancing act, trying not to fall in. And the worst part? No matter how hard I paddle, I can't seem to get anywhere, the shore keeps moving farther away. I graduated college a few years ago, full of hope and big dreams. I wanted to travel, maybe start a small business someday, save enough to live comfortably, and not worry about money so much. But the reality I woke up to was harsh and relentless. Rent alone consumes more than half of my paycheck, and utilities, groceries, transportation, and medical bills chip away at what's left. And then there's the creeping inflation that no one can escape, prices going up on everything, but my paycheck barely budging. It's like the whole economic system is designed to keep me and millions of others in this never-ending cycle of strain and sacrifice. Some mornings, I lie in bed longer than I should, dreading the day because I know it'll just be about stretching pennies, skipping meals, or saying no to something I want or need. I watch friends post pictures of new gadgets, weekend getaways, or fancy dinners, and there's this pang of jealousy, but also sadness because I can't join them. Not because I don't want to, but because I simply can't afford it without feeling the financial pinch for weeks after. I remember the last time I bought myself something non-essential, a book, and I felt guilty for days afterward, like I'd wasted money that could have gone toward bills or groceries. Every decision feels weighted. Do I buy the cheapest groceries and risk my health? Do I take the bus instead of an occasional rideshare and add an extra hour to my commute? Should I skip the doctor's appointment I've been putting off because I can't afford the copay? These are not the choices I imagined making as a young adult with potential and drive. The pressure doesn't just weigh on my wallet, it wears on my mind and heart. There are nights I lie awake, heart pounding, wondering if I'm doing enough, if I'll ever catch a break, or if I'm doomed to keep running on this treadmill with no finish line. It's exhausting and isolating. Sometimes I feel invisible, like the system doesn't care about people like me. We're just numbers, statistics in reports, or background noise in political debates. Nobody talks about what it really feels like to live paycheck to paycheck with rising costs swallowing any chance of saving or breathing room. I've learned to cope in small ways. I find comfort in simple things, an evening walk, a phone call with a close friend, or journaling my frustrations instead of bottling them up. I remind myself that I'm not alone, even if it feels that way sometimes. There's a quiet strength in surviving day after day, even if it doesn't feel heroic. I celebrate tiny wins, paying off a small debt, cooking a meal from scratch that tastes good, or managing to avoid overdraft fees. But I also grieve the dreams I've had to put on hold. I postponed buying a car because I can't handle another monthly payment. I shelved plans to take a course that could boost my career because tuition is out of reach. Even starting a family feels distant, tangled up in fears of what financial strain might do to relationships and stability. These aren't just practical decisions, they sting because they're dreams and milestones I once pictured easily. Still, there's a flicker of hope I try to hold on to. I remind myself that this isn't forever. I try to believe that economic tides can turn, that policies might change, that opportunity might knock when I least expect it. I look for small ways to grow, learning new skills online, networking, saving what little I can. I want to believe that my worth isn't tied to my bank balance, and that the future can hold more than just survival. Living with constant financial pressure isn't just about managing money, it's about managing hope, dignity, and self-worth. It's about navigating a system that feels rigged while trying to keep your humanity intact. Every day I face the challenge of finding meaning and joy in a world that seems set on reminding me of limits. It's hard, and sometimes I falter, but I keep paddling. Because the alternative, giving up, feels even scarier. So for now, I hold on to that fragile raft and keep swimming, hoping one day the water will calm and I'll find solid ground beneath my feet. Sometimes, I feel like I'm drowning in slow motion. It's not a sudden catastrophe, not a loud crash or an explosion, but a constant, relentless pressure that's slowly squeezing the air out of my lungs. I'm 26, living in a small apartment I can barely afford, working 2 jobs that barely pay the bills, and watching every dollar I earn slip through my fingers faster than I can catch it. The economic environment I'm living in isn't just difficult, it feels designed to keep people like me trapped, always chasing an ever-moving target that never stops growing. When I wake up in the morning, the first thought that crosses my mind is always the same: how am I going to make this work today? It's not the kind of worry that passes after a cup of coffee or a quick check of the news. It's there in the background, like a low, constant hum. Rent went up again this year, as it does every year. The grocery prices have soared so much that even the basic ingredients I used to buy without thinking are now luxuries I scrutinize. Public transportation costs more, the utility bills are insane, and my phone plan somehow got more expensive last month. I haven't had a night out or a proper weekend off in months. The money just isn't there. I'm stuck in a system where expenses grow faster than income, and the gap only widens with time. I work hard, I really do. But no matter how many hours I put in or how frugal I try to be, it's like the system is rigged. Bills arrive like clockwork, each one a reminder that no matter what I do, I'm not getting ahead. It's exhausting. Some nights, I lie awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if this is what the rest of my life will look like. I've had to make so many sacrifices. The dreams I had when I was younger, traveling, buying a car, even going back to school for a degree that could get me a better job, feel like distant memories now. I used to imagine a future where I could save up, maybe start a family, have a home that was mine. But now? Even thinking about those things feels almost irresponsible because I can barely cover today's expenses. I postpone doctor's appointments, skip meals, and sometimes I don't tell my friends when I can't meet up because I don't want to explain that I just can't afford it. Emotionally, it wears me down. There's a creeping sense of hopelessness that's hard to shake. I feel isolated because people don't always understand. When you say, "I'm struggling financially," people might nod politely, but they don't see the nightly anxiety, the shame of calling a parent to ask for help, or the sting of turning down invitations because I can't afford to be social. I feel trapped in a cycle where my efforts don't match the outcomes, and that's a lonely place to be. To cope, I've learned to find small pockets of peace in my day. Sometimes, it's the quiet before the world wakes up when I sit with a cup of tea and just breathe. Other times, it's losing myself in a book borrowed from the library or listening to music that reminds me there's more to life than bills and work. I also try to keep a journal, even though I don't always write in it regularly. Writing helps me untangle the mess of thoughts in my head, even if only a little. Connecting with a few close friends online, sharing honest moments, has also been a lifeline. I'm trying to remind myself that this is temporary, even if it doesn't feel that way. I'm trying to hold on to the hope that one day, I'll look back on this time and see how it shaped me rather than defined me. Maybe someday, I'll have a steady job that pays enough. Maybe I'll live somewhere without the constant stress of rent hikes. Maybe I'll be able to travel or save money or even just eat out once in a while without guilt. But right now, I'm just trying to get through each day without breaking. This economic pressure is like a heavy weight on my chest, and some days it feels unbearable. Still, I'm here. I'm still pushing forward, even if it's one small step at a time. I guess that's all any of us can do. Some days, it feels like I'm running in place while the whole world speeds past me. Like the air's thick with a tension I can't quite shake off. That's how I live now, caught in this relentless grind where every choice is shadowed by money, or more precisely, the lack of it. I'm 27, supposed to be at the start of building my life, but instead, I'm stuck trying not to drown beneath a flood of bills, rent, and expenses that seem to stretch beyond what I can ever earn. I remember the early days, fresh out of college, full of hope and ideas, dreaming about traveling, buying my own apartment one day, maybe even starting my own business. But reality came fast, harsh, and loud. The job market was tight. I took what I could get, which was far from what I studied for or what I imagined. The paycheck was modest, barely covering rent in a tiny apartment I share with a roommate, plus utilities, groceries, student loans, and the random surprise expenses that always come at the worst moments. And it never stops. It's like a cruel math problem with no solution, expenses rising faster than income, like they have a race I'm doomed to lose. Rent went up this year again, because of course it did. The price of food seems to double every few months. Transportation costs? Gas, bus fare, or rideshares, it all piles up. I'm constantly juggling, trying to find ways to squeeze out a few more dollars. I pick up extra shifts, take freelance gigs when I can, anything to keep the sinking feeling at bay. But the harder I work, the less I seem to get ahead. There's this gnawing sense of being trapped, like I'm stuck in a loop with no exit. I want to save, to build a cushion for emergencies, but it feels like every cent I put aside is immediately swallowed by an unexpected car repair or a medical bill. I see friends buying houses, starting families, going on vacations, and I'm here, trying not to miss a meal so I can pay the electric bill. Sometimes, I feel like I'm invisible to the system, like my struggle isn't real because it's not flashy or dramatic, just this slow, grinding stress that wears me down bit by bit. Emotionally, it's exhausting. I'm constantly worried about money, about my future, about what happens if something goes wrong. That stress creeps into every part of my life. It's hard to sleep some nights, staring at the ceiling, running the numbers in my head, wondering how long I can keep this up before I break. Social life? Forget it. It's expensive to go out, to even meet a friend for coffee. I often say no to invitations just because I can't justify the cost. The isolation that follows is another layer of weight I carry. And yet, I try to cope. I've found small pockets of peace in simple things, reading books from the library, going on walks in the park, cooking meals at home instead of eating out. I've learned to be resourceful, clipping coupons, hunting for sales, budgeting obsessively. I even started a journal where I write down my feelings. Sometimes it's the only way I can be honest with myself. I remind myself that this is temporary, even when it doesn't feel like it. But the dreams, the big ones, they've been postponed. Owning a home? That feels like a fantasy. Traveling abroad? I can barely afford the bus fare to the city center. Saving for retirement? A joke. I've had to let go of a lot of hopes because they seem impossible right now. It hurts, that feeling of giving up parts of your future before you've really lived it. Still, there's a flicker of hope I try to hold on to. I believe things can change, that maybe if I keep pushing, keep learning, keep adapting, I can break free from this cycle. I don't want to be defined by my financial struggle. I want to be more than the sum of my debts and bills. I want to create a life where money isn't a constant chain around my neck. So, yeah, it's tough. Some days I feel crushed by it all. But I'm still here, still fighting, still dreaming, maybe not in the big, flashy way I imagined, but in the quiet, stubborn way of someone who refuses to give up. That's what keeps me going. Because even when the system feels like it's stacked against me, I want to believe there's a way forward, even if I can't see it clearly yet. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.